Hey, what's up, everybody? Tim Albrecht here, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ask a YFP CFP segment of the Your Financial Pharmacist Podcast, where we feature questions from you, the YFP community, to be answered by one of our very own fee-only certified financial planners. Please note this podcast is intended for educational purposes and should not be considered financial or investment advice, as we do not know all the variables to one's personal situation when answering a question. Before we jump into today's question, a shout out to our extraordinary YFP financial planning team that makes this segment possible. Your Financial Pharmacist offers fee-only comprehensive financial planning services that are customized to the pharmacy professional. So whether you want to pay off your student loans, make the right investment decisions, or simply build a solid financial plan, we'll help get your income working for you rather than the other way around. You can learn more by visiting yfpplanning.com. Again, that's yfpplanning.com. Okay, this week's question comes from Erin in Southeast Virginia.
Hi, this is Erin O'Rourke from Southeast Virginia, and I had a question. My company, as part of financial reasoning behind trying to save the money from the peak that didn't happen in coronavirus, has opted to suspend matching for our 403B retirement accounts. And I'm just curious what other people would do in terms of suspending their a contribution to, because there's no more match, or if they would continue to contribute. I've been in practice for about 9 years, and I've always saved the minimum to at least get the free money and the match. And I'm just curious if anybody out there would recommend turning that off temporarily until the match resumed in order to pay off student loans or other bills.
Thank you, Erin, for submitting your question to be featured on this week's Ask a YFP CFP segment of the Your Financial Pharmacist Podcast. Tim Baker, this may be something that many others are wondering as well, given the situation with COVID. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Tim, you know what I'm going to say. It really is. It's going to depend on a lot of things. But I think, not understanding kind of the overall balance sheet for Erin and kind of what the assets and liabilities look like, and not necessarily understanding, what the life plan is or what the goals are. That the financial plan should really support. A few thoughts with this. Now, I would say by and large, and this is going to sound very contradictory, but like this is a great year to be investing every month into a 403B or 401k, because one, the market is down, it's a bit volatile, and you're asking me why is that the case? And typically those dollars go a lot further because prices are lower. So when the market recovers, you see that appreciation on the back end. So the whole idea of like dollar cost averaging and getting money into and to buy cheaper shares of that mutual fund in your 403B is important. And I think with obviously COVID-19 and the election year and just the craziness that is 2020, I think we're going to see volatility and the market, kind of ebb and flow. So the question of to contribute or not to contribute, I think Erin said you were in practice for 9 years and you've always put in at least a match. I would definitely say, beware the 401k inertia, which essentially means that there's a lot of professionals that, I come across, they're like, hey, I get a 5% match. So that's what I put in, 5%. And there's almost like this belief that that'll be enough for retirement. And it's just not. So not everyone can max out their 403B, which is the 19,500, in 2020 every year. But I kind of plant the seed in a lot of clients' mind that it should be kind of like a race to 10%. You should be putting 10% of your own money into your 401k, your 403B to kind of better your situation in the long run with regard to retirement. Now, it's also going to depend on things like student loans and other bills that you have. You shouldn't really be doing that if you're drowning in credit card debt or if you have an aggressive payoff strategy with regard to the student loans. So that's a consideration to make. So again, depending on what the debt potentially looks like. But again, the market, the way it is now, is like, it's more about time in the market versus time in the market.
Yes.
And your dollars go, further today that, just because it's a little bit more of a down market. I think the other thing to potentially consider here is the kind of just the expenses with regard to your 403B or your 401k. And what I mean by that is there's kind of this decision tree of most people, depending on the situation, but most people should get the match because it is free money. And then from there, you kind of do an assessment of, okay, and there's a tax overlay to this, but should you put more of a contribution into the 403b, or should you look at something like an IRA, which sometimes doesn't have the expenses that are very opaque to you, the participant, that we try to bring to light when we work with clients. So as an example, my wife, if you look at her 401k, her all-in expense is 0.75%. So that's with like administrative costs and like expense ratio, which doesn't sound like a lot of money, but on a $100,000 portfolio, that's $750 every year that the plan absorbs that she doesn't see, it just takes out. So obviously, as that goes from 100,000 to 200,000, 300,000, that's a lot of money that adds up. If you compare that against like the IRA that I manage for her, with YFP, it's 0.05. So
Winning.
$50 a year. Yeah, $50 a year versus $750. It's a no-brainer. And one of the things we talk about at length is expense.
Yeah, and what if that difference was invested, right? I mean, not only is that expense
right.
this year, but the compound growth of what that would be.
Exactly. So to me, if the match turns off, then the conversations that we're having with clients is like, does it make sense to completely shut off the contribution and then just work on maxing out the IRAs and some of the other accounts first before going back? And then of course, you're looking at the tax ramifications of that as well, which is again why we have the tax practice, as part of our service. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. And again, at the end of the day, it's going to depend on what you're trying to achieve. But, to me, the hard part about all of this, and this is kind of worth mentioning, is I think the hard part about financial planning in my estimation is it's threading the needle between taking care of yourself today and your future self. Mm-hmm. So it's like, all right, if I forego my retirement right now because I'm not getting the match to kind of, do something that's more near term or immediate, that's important, but you want to make sure that you're kind of taking care of both sides of that equation. And that's sometimes really hard to do.
Yeah, and I think your point about the the behavior side, the inertia, is a really, really good one. I mean, there's the fact that you need to know more about the debt and what's the interest and all of that, and weigh that decision of, do I invest, do I pay off? We've talked about that many times, on the show before. But there then is also just the realities you mentioned, which I have fallen victim to, and many people have in other parts of the financial plan, that you may make a decision today thinking you're going to, in this case, plus that back up or catch up at a certain point in time. But, often time goes by quickly and other priorities come to be, and that may not end up being the case. So I would reference to folks to, as we're talking here, I'm reminded back to the investing series we did a couple years ago, episodes 72 through 76, and specifically the priority of investing we talked about in episode 73. But for those that are listening, hearing a lot of this terminology or wanting some additional information or thinking about the expense part of your portfolio, I think that series would be really helpful. And Tim, you mentioned, and I don't want to lose this, I think the fee piece, for how important it is, and I think there's often a hyper focus on the returns side of things because it's, I don't know, maybe a little bit more exciting, whereas thinking about fees is not as exciting. But I think that the comment about that often being opaque and difficult to navigate is a really important one. So, what advice would you have for folks that are listening, whether it be in their 403b, their 401k, or their IRA, of really being able to identify that and bring that to light, and how they can find that information? I mean, I would assume it's just, from what I've seen, set up in a way that it's not super easy to find what all of those fees are.
Yeah, I mean, and to be completely frank, we use a tool. We use a tool that basically allows us to plug directly into our clients' 401ks, 403bs to kind of do this analysis. And basically, what it's doing is it's looking at Form 5500 that the plan has to file with the IRS every year, and it shows things like administrative costs and things that you just are paying that you really don't know about. And this tool we use basically does the analysis, and actually allows us to allocate and pick funds on the client's behalf, which is really powerful. It's super expensive. It's really expensive to the business, but I think as a fiduciary, I think it's the right thing to do. And most people, they just have no idea what they're paying, and it's again, not hyperbole to say this is potentially thousands, tens of thousands of dollars or more over the course of your lifetime. So like, when I have a client that, they come to me and they're paying 1.5%, and I can get that down to like 0.1%, like That's huge. And especially if you have the dollars in there already, but if you project out like what that, we say that, most pharmacists are going to need millions of dollars in their nest egg, $5 million or whatever that is, like that potentially adds up. And, a lot of the science around investing in like, the best indicator of future performance is expense.
Yes.
So one of the things that we are hyper vigilant about is keeping that as low as humanly possible. And sometimes it's out of your control just because of what plan your employer has you in.
Yeah, and I'll link in the show notes. But back in 2017, we wrote an article of, are you making this $1 million mistake, which is really highlighting this fee component and what that could be if you were to save. Just quickly, and we'll bring this back on a future episode as well. But what is the craziest thing you've seen on the fee side? I mean, you talked about getting it as low as 0.05, 0.06, under 0.1, depending on the portfolio construct and makeup. But I'm assuming you've seen, there's a lot of crappy 401k plans out there. I mean, I'm assuming you've seen fees that are well north of 1%.
Yeah, I mean, close to 2%. So it typically in the smaller business, like independent channel, I had a client that had roughly $200,000 in a 401k, and the admin costs and the cost of the funds itself were really high, and it was like $4,000 a year. $4,000 a year. That and it's not like a line item, Tim, where you're saying, oh, I paid $4,000 for this or that. Like it's just absorbed by the plan. And there's just so much like cheap. Like I look at our 401k, what we installed for our business, and it's like fractions of a fraction of what that costs. And to me, I'm like, it's almost like you have to break the wheel. Like I'm trying to plead with her to like talk to the business owner so we can replace it. Because again, as a fiduciary, I want what's in her best interest. And there are better options out there that are just not as expensive as some of these plans, can really be.
Awesome. Great stuff, Tim, as always. And Erin, thank you for taking time to submit your question. And as a small thank you, we'll be sending you a super comfy YFP t-shirt. And for those that are listening and you have a question that you'd like to be featured on a future episode, please go to yourfinancialpharmacist.com/ask YFP or shoot us an email at info@yourfinancialpharmacist.com. Have a great rest of your week.